So in terms of like grounding us for the next hour, the session is really about reflection, and we've designed it so that we'll take you through a series of prompts. I'll say more about that, so that you can clarify your teaching approach using GenAI. Like this is something that we came up with. It is not tested, not tried and true. So we will be really keen to get your feedback on this. So there'll be reflection. You'll be describing your approach to teaching, and of course, doing that with GenAI to support reflective practice. I think we're stating the obvious. We're not getting the tool to write the teaching approach for us, but really working as collaborators with GenAI. And to make sure that we're on the same page here, we wanted to also define what we mean by teaching approach. And kind of there's three main components to this. Why do I teach? How do I teach? And how do I assess? Now, often what we see is, I guess, maybe the most common documentation of a teaching approach is in your teaching philosophy statement, but we have intentionally not used that term because we want to be more broad in this session about what we mean by articulating your teaching approach. Judy, could I get you to put the slides and the Google Doc in the chat? So we have two documents for you. One is a PDF of the slides. And if ever you want a PowerPoint version, just contact us after the session and we're happy to send this to you. And then the other is a Google Doc just to make it easier once we get into the activities. So what we're here to do today in terms of the session goals, by the end of the session, you'll be able to identify key elements of a teaching approach. That was kind of what we were talking about just a moment ago. Use GenAI to support reflection, drafting, and refinement of your teaching approach. And then really appreciate the value of your voice. Often the word authentic voice is used. Not a huge fan of that term, but I think it gets the message across in articulating your approach. Judy.
Hello, like you mentioned, I am Judy Chan. I use the pronoun she, her. I am a educational developer here at CTLT, but my last teaching and ED philosophy statement was updated almost 10 years ago. But I have a reason. I think I can articulate that later. But I'm a regular user of AI tool. I think I do one intense interaction with it about once a week and on different topic. But it's not part of my routine. I don't use it to draft my email, etc. Over to you, Isabel.
Yeah, so as I have, in terms of articulating my teaching approach, so my main role is as an educational developer, and I have an educational developer blog that I don't keep updated, but I did write a statement, so the equivalent of a teaching philosophy statement on there. I did revisit it last year, made minor changes. At that point, I wasn't using AI at all. And I mean, the reason we're disclosing this is because often when we write and articulate our teaching approach, it's for, either tenure promotion, reappointment. It might be for a job application, and then it sits until you have to do it again. So that's often the case. I'd say a fairly novice user of AI, also probably a reluctant user of AI, but I do use it. So Judy and I are coming kind of from different perspectives, or different practices, probably.
So why do we want to articulate our teaching approach? Isabel next. So there are a few reasons. So it's serve as a growth and reflections. We wanted to look at how we teach, what we teach in the past, and why we teach is more for personal reason, Or is there, like a few of you mentioned, is as part of your promotion and tenure package, is part of your summative or maybe formative peer review. It is for maybe for collaboration. So there's, as in a teaching philosophy statement. So there is a little bit of for your colleagues to get to know who you are and how you teach. And a few of you also mentioned about using it for courses. So that's for transparency, letting the students know who you are again, how you approach your teaching. And therefore, the students will get to know you better. And this is also part of building trust, part of building a community in the classroom. And when we say competitive storytelling, what we are talking about is award. When you are going for teaching award, you really want to tell a story. You really want to let people know who you are and why you teach the way you teach, and therefore, in order to get the award. So there are 4 reasons, and therefore there are 4 type of audience. So that will be on the next slide. Yourself, to your colleagues, to your students, and your award review committees. Thank you.
So in terms of starting us off, because what we are going to do, and I'll say a little bit more about this, is that we'll be through this workshop giving you some time to work and play, and then hear back kind of what was that like. We would like to invite you to start by writing a short about me. So this is something that you will then be able to let Gen AI know what you're doing, a little bit about you, so that the results are more helpful, presumably. So this is our suggestion. This is in the Google Doc. So take a few minutes to craft an about me that will help AI be a useful collaborator. You can use whatever GenAI tool you usually use or that already knows you. And these are some ideas, like write a little bit about your context. Who do you want AI to act as? And of course, any constraints. And then in the Google Doc, we have some examples here that you can modify, you can riff off of, whatever it is. So we'll give you a few minutes to write something that you would then feed into the AI. All right, that's been about 2 minutes. Um, so I'm kind of laughing a little bit, giggling inside because I attended Lucas's workshop yesterday, and had I written these examples had I written these examples now, I'd probably make them different because Lucas has some really great frameworks for writing case studies, which I didn't follow. And Lucas, you're here. I saw your name, so, I know you know what I'm talking about. Um, Hopefully that gave you time to write something about yourself. And before we start into the reflective process, I wanted to outline what's going to be happening. So we mentioned that the teaching approach is why I teach, how I assess. And we're going to take each of those sections, and for each of those, and we probably won't get to the how do I assess, but you've got the slides, and so you'll have the prompts, you've got the Google Doc. So for each of those, starting with the why I teach, we're going to invite you to do a free write. Then you'll be using AI to gather some insights, and then we'll be, as a group, having a bit of a debrief on what was that like. There won't be any breakout rooms. There'll be solo reflection, individual work, and then group discussion. That's kind of how we're doing this. All right, Judy, over to you.
So why I teach. So next slide, please. So we are going to ask you to do a couple more free writing exercise today. Again, 2 minutes to really respond to one of these prompting phrases. We change it from prompt to prompting phrases because prompt is really associated with AI, but we really want you to do it without AI, just on your own, write or type. Using some of these phrases. The reason I teach is one thing I hope my student will carry with them after my course is, or you may want to think about teaching matters to me because one value that shapes my teaching is. So we really, again, wanted to give you time to write again. So even if you already have something, many of you mentioned that you already have something, let's do it again on your own, 2 minutes. I'm starting the timer. Why do I teach? Time's up. I hope this is enough time to get you to jot some idea down. So we would like to invite you to use AI as a mirror, as a reflection tool. Okay. Put your response or type your response again into your preferred AI tool. We got questions in the chat asking what do we use. Because this is a little bit more professional, like this is my work, this is my life. I sort of would like to do it more in the UBC licensed Copilot that is available to UBC faculty and staff. But it's ChatGPT, like Isabel mentioned, is my go-to tool for everything else that is not professional, like my other thing. So these are the two tools that we use more often. But now go back to your preferred tools and ask. You can ask these two questions. What core value, belief, and or motivation about teaching do you see emerging in this short reflection? So ask ChatGPT or GenAI. You can ask them to arrange the notes for you to make them into category listed in bullet points. So we would like you to try this in now, or maybe let's do both at the same time, Isabel. Let's do the next AI, the next slide. Or you may, if for those of you who have a good draft that is available to you, that you have it open, you may also ask AI as a challenger. Okay, you're thinking about sharing it on your course, your syllabus, or you're coming up for your tenure. Then, based on what is coming up for you, and looking at the response so far, you can ask AI to ask you some questions, how and why questions, to help you to go deeper and clarify your motivation for teaching. You can also ask AI to act as a caring call. I just use this adjective because I was having fun, as someone who is caring, someone who's curious, or someone who's very critical. So you can also do that. So Isabel, are we going to give people a few minutes to do this? Yes. So maybe 3 minutes, that's fine. Lots of options. Time's up. Let's go to the moves. I know there's so much going on. I don't know what type of conversation you are having with chat right now or Copilot. So we are curious to know, what do you think so far? What's happening between you and GenAI?
I think it's quite interesting. I remember watching a couple of weeks ago a video of an actor, a famous actor, who was shocked because he asked ChatGPT to ask him questions, just wrote his name. And because everything's public, right? There's so much information there, ChatGPT immediately wrote specific questions for him. Like, what would you ask Ricky Gervais? And was very specific. So what I did here, because we have our LinkedIn, we have some publication, I have only some publications, blah, blah, blah. I asked, write a website, for example, about me page, about Denise Blanche Celada, because my information is out there. It immediately took my public information and created it. So it's not that we have to start from scratch, because as most of us have our public information publications, it's so easy for ChatGPT or to any AI tool to start just working with what it already has. So it's like, oh my God, like I don't even know where it got some of that information, right?
Yes. Thank you. Yes. So maybe we don't even need to do the free writing but we wanted to, and that's another reason that why we dedicate 2 minutes and 2 minutes and ask you to do your free writing. We still want to be in control in a way. And then, but also interesting to hear some other responses in the chat. One person say, AI said, my statement has strong motivation, but limited evidence or of practice. Well, that's the beginning. We are only articulating our teaching approach at the moment. Evidence of practice, it will be another workshop. Over to you, Isabel. Thank you for sharing your experience so far. I know some of you are still in the deep of chatting with ChatGPT. Isabel, over to you.
All right, so we are going to follow the same process for how do I teach? And again, now you know how it goes. So we'll start with a free write, 2-minute free write. Take 2 minutes. Here are a few of the prompts or suggestions. When we say prompts, of course, we mean like your responses to these phrases. We put a few here, but feel free to modify them as you want. Take 2 minutes to start to reflect in writing about how do I teach? And we'll let you know when time's up. All right, that's 2 minutes. Janice, thanks for your comment. Janice writes, I don't use ChatGPT for personal things, mostly to ask and get info about things not connected to me. And then kind of a concern about like, what we are sharing. Yes, I share in your concern. Judy, as someone who's much more experienced than I am, or anyone else, um, what would you respond to Janice?
Yeah, I think when I mentioned personnel, it's mostly gathering information. So I don't know. I chat with ChatGPT quite often now. So over time, it's getting some of my personal information. But yes, but I'm also getting something back too. So
I don't know how to put my hand up. I can jump in if you want.
Yes, please.
Janice, great point. A couple things to mention. One is if you're logged into ChatGPT, you can turn off its ability to record and use conversations as training. I don't know if that's 100%, but it's one thing. And the other piece is you can download local AI models onto your computer with a program called Jan.ai, and those models will not be connected to the internet. So with this sort of activity where you don't want to share personal things, sometimes I'll use a local model, so I'm not actually sharing with the internet.
Thank you, Lucas. All right, so the next piece, the AI is a mirror. Paste your response, whatever it was that you wrote previously in the free write, and here's a prompt that you can, or instructions that you can use. So we will give you 2 minutes for that. Yeah, let's do it in this order for now. So 2 minutes. Right. Probably don't need much time for as much time as I said for this. So you have something back here, and the reason that we wrote the piece around the pedagogical terms is because in our experience of working with faculty for quite some time at this point, it can be sometimes useful to know that that what you do, there's a name for it, that there's that there is a pedagogical term, that there is probably reams of research on it. And so we advocate for what's called taking a scholarly approach to your teaching, which basically means looking into sources. That could be a number of things. That could be research, peer-reviewed articles, blogs, and that. But tying what you do to a bigger conversation and a body of research. So that's why we put that in there, just to let you know. The next piece of this is asking the Gen AI to ask you 3 thoughtful questions to deepen your own reflections. And you'll see here we've got the pedagogical terms piece in here as well. So take maybe 2 minutes or so for this, and then we'll open it up and see what you're finding. All right, so we would love to take a few moments to hear from you again. How is this process for you? Useful, not useful? What might you change? Anything that kind of is coming up as insights, because your own experience of this, like, we are really, really curious how this is going for you.
So it talks like I'm always struggling with assessment. So here is just when you create your assessment, how do you ensure it's not just about identifying gaps, but building students' confidence and agency? So, which is something I'm always wanting to, and I'm always trying to include, and here it is, putting it right on top in front of me. Don't forget about this, right?
Nice. So it's
Yeah.
giving you language and ideas, it sounds like.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Natalie writes, having some clarity on what theories underpin my approach helps me. Yes. Love it. Lucas, what were the 3 words that you used yesterday that were so good that I'm already forgetting in terms of how we use, like, kind of 3 roles for Gen AI?
Delegate, describe, and discern.
That's it. I love those words. Yes, yes. I thought that was so good. Obviously forgotten, but like they stood out, and I would know where to go to find that. But it's a really, I think that's a really nice way to say, okay, how am I using Gen AI here? So thank you for that. Okay, we are not going to go to assessment, but you've got the prompts, and if this process is working for you, then that would be a way to continue with this process. We are going to move to the last section here around ethical guidelines.
Okay, so I thought this is very important for us to think about our ethical responsibility when we're working with Gen AI, and to craft something that is very personal. It's not only personal, but we are actually sharing it with our students as a role model to them, and with our colleague, or like you said, maybe for tenure and promotion. So this is a high stake. It will become something high stake. We only articulate the beginning, the teaching approach. So some of the guidelines here is to make sure that we keep the voice at the center. And again, this is why we've been doing, we need to write, we need to start our own writing first. We need to know we need to start writing why I teach, how I teach, and how I assess. And then treat AI as a partner, as a mirror, as a challenger, and AI is not going to write it for you. AI is not going to look through the internet and find information about you and then start writing your teaching approach for you. And we are not there yet today for teaching approach, but later on, as you continue to build your teaching philosophy statement and working on your award package, make sure that you don't put your information, your students' information, and your colleagues' information into the space. And be transparent when appropriate. So be transparent when appropriate. That we also want to be transparent. We use Gen AI to help us in terms of drafting well, getting some idea. We actually use Isabel and I use GenAI to form from the description of the workshop to some of the outline of the workshop. And I have to say, even this part here is a little prompt from AI. AI say, would you like something on ethical use of AI on reflective writing? I'm like, yes, please. So I use that, and this is here. But we also workshop. Isabel and I also spend the time to make sure that it's our voice here too. So next, we have a workflow again. Start writing on our own, thinking about what we need. Come to our workshop so then you get some prompting phrases. Haha, self-promoting here. Talk about a teaching experience in our own work. Use GenAI as a mirror, as a challenger, to help you deepen your reflection. Then you respond and think. We don't need to have a lot of prompting from ChatGPT or from GenAI. We get a couple of questions and really think about it and how to respond. In the end, I'm saying towards the end, we can use GenAI to help organize our note. Also include the final spell check type of note, but we need to edit it thoroughly. Make sure that this is your own work. Also, make sure you share this with your colleague. Many of us in other workshop has also talked about in other workshop led by Lucas, especially on assessment. We've been talking about that. Hey, we get a sense. We can sense that the students really, there's something there that we notice. So we really want to make sure that by the time when you are at your final stage, almost final stage, make sure you ask a colleague to read it through. Your colleague knows you. They know that you never say those words. Those are not your words. Those are not your vocabulary. And your colleagues can also help to make sure that this is reflecting who you are as a teacher and as educator. So this is some ethical AI workflow that is a suggestions to us. And in the end, again, is it your voice? Is this really your experience? The tone for students, a little friendlier, more formal for your tenure track promotion package. And again, make sure you also check your UBC. Well, do we have a policy? Maybe I need to throw these questions to Lucas. But if you're going for award, make sure that it's also compliant with the awards guidelines and policies. Thank you, Lucas. Lucas said he doesn't know of any policy at UBC for the use of GenAI for staff and faculty in our work. Okay, Isabel.
We have a few minutes to respond to any lingering questions, either kind of find out from you what would be useful as next steps or hear from you what your next steps are. So let's just take a few minutes to open it up for any questions that you might have. Janice, please go ahead.
Hi. I'd say, this is making me feel uncomfortable because normally I've used it for, tell me about the new results from experiment X and how they compare to previous theoretical predictions, blah, blah, blah. So it's like super Wikipedia, right? It grabs all the references and stuff. Now I'm just thinking about, and I'm retiring next year, so this really doesn't matter for me. I'm just curious to know how my students are using this. And I find it pretty scary because I realize my students are probably doing half their homework using this stuff, yeah? So now the thing is, how do I design assignments that are bot proof? So, I'm just thinking like the only way to really assess students is going to be in person with oral exams or something.
It's a great question, Janice. Lucas, Judy, do you know of upcoming sessions that address assessment and AI? Because I know there's a whole bunch.
I think there's one in October. I can double check and we can send.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, I can look at the webpage and sign up.
Yeah, Judy and Lucas, I'll let you respond. Oh, Lucas might be, no, Lucas is still here to Janice's question because you have been dealing with this like straight on.
Yeah, I don't mind jumping in. Let me just, so we did a workshop on it last week. What were maybe just a quick approach would be making sure that you're really clear communicating with your students about when and how AI can be used. So communication's a small part of it, but then structuring your assessments and the way that we've thought of structuring assessment and the way that the research suggests around AI resilient or AI resistance assessment is one is that in-person activity. So more and more emphasis on the in-person. So what I'm seeing is instructors might take a class where they don't have much person, where they haven't had too many in-person assessments, and they'll have little checkpoints. So where they'll have a more in-person assessments so that they're kind of authenticating the students' knowledge because what they're finding is that there's grade inflation happening when there's just online assignments or homework assignments. So by having these little check-ins, it kind of authenticates assessments and it forces students to learn the information because they know that they're going to be tested on it. Oral exams are growing as well, Viva Voca, or using oral assessment as a method, but also other modality approaches. For example, using clickers in your class and grading the results of a discussion, using active learning that's graded. So again, thinking about the class. The other pieces around process is moving away a little bit away from product and getting students to show process more. This isn't totally 100% because students can still use AI for process, but it helps a little bit. And an example of this historically is mathematics, where math has always had students, or for a long time, probably since the calculator, show their work. So it's like, what can I do to get students to show process? If I do an essay, maybe I have them upload their notes with it in Canvas and share how they built that essay to, again, capture the process and maybe even evaluate the process of an assessment. And maybe the last one is around motivation. And again, this one is even less strong, but just thinking about authentic assessment and what motivates students towards doing an assessment themselves is often a connection with the workplace or the discipline or specific reasons they're learning those skills. So, kind of focusing on that and being a little bit wary of, and I know we all are as instructors, but busy work teaching, this sort of where students are doing an assessment that they don't feel is that helpful for them. I think this creates more of a pinch point where they might be more inclined to use artificial intelligence. So that is all I'm hearing right now in terms of the research. I'm going to share if are you interested in reading a paper about this?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, let me share a paper that I find really helpful about
I just
thinking
changed
about
my
structure.
grading scheme to make homework worth less, two midterms worth a bit more,
Yeah.
final worth a bit more. So I know that those are things they can't be using.
All right, with that, I'm going to thank you very much on behalf of Judy and myself. Really, really appreciated you being here and your input and your interest. I'm wishing you a good day.